The arena roared like a storm, filled with tens of thousands of alien voices chanting for blood. Zarkon Prime's skies had darkened from the smoke of burning torches, and beams of harsh, white light shone down on the grand arena floor, a battlefield carved into black stone. At the center stood Commander Vale of the Sithari, a towering figure wrapped in gleaming silver armor, her skin glowing faintly with blue energy that marked her as one of the highest warriors of her kind. She wore 3 curved blades strapped to her back, blades said to be carved from the bones of extinct star beasts. Her presence alone commanded silence, awe, and fear. Across her victories, no challenger had lasted more than a minute. Her name was whispered with reverence across 7 systems. Today, she had demanded a final challenge, a public one, a duel to silence the last whispers of rebellion. The crowd expected blood. They expected to see another enemy crushed under her heel. And so they waited for her challenger to appear. Then, from the far gate of the arena, a small door hissed open. The crowd went quiet. A single figure stepped forward, tall, slim, unarmored. No banners flew behind him. No fanfare followed. Just a man in a plain black flight suit, worn with dust and old creases. He had dark hair, a short beard, and calm gray eyes that held no fear. His name was Ryan Cole, though none in the stands knew it. The Sithari guards had announced only that he was a human, a last-minute addition, a joke. The crowd began to laugh and jeer as he approached the center of the arena with his hands tucked into his pockets, as if he were taking a quiet stroll, not preparing for battle. Vial watched him with mild amusement, then took a slow step forward, her boots cracking the stone beneath her. Her voice echoed like thunder. "You dare challenge me, human?" she asked, baring sharp white teeth in a wide grin. Ryan stopped walking a few meters away from her, then tilted his head slightly. "Not really," he replied, his voice low, almost bored. "But you hurt my friend. I'm here to finish what you started." The crowd burst into laughter again. Some howled, others booed. A few called for the fight to start so they could watch the human be broken. Vial licked her lips, her blades humming as they began to glow faintly with heat. She spun one blade off her back and let it slide into her hand. The arena lit up with anticipation. A loud, echoing gong rang through the air, the traditional sign that the duel had begun. Without hesitation, Vial leapt into motion. Her first strike was fast, a blur of silver and blue, slicing downward with enough force to split steel. The human barely moved. He shifted his weight and took a single step to the side, letting the blade pass clean through empty air. Vial snarled and swung again, twice more in rapid bursts, aiming to slice his shoulder than his leg. But each time Ryan leaned away, not dodging wildly but stepping just enough to make her miss. The crowd's noise began to quiet as confusion spread. Vial's eyes narrowed. She changed tactics, swinging with more speed, aiming not to kill but to catch him. Still, Ryan avoided each strike with smooth, minimal motion. He looked almost lazy, like he was watching her dance. No counterattack, no signs of effort. Just careful, measured steps. Vial jumped back and shouted, "Fight me, coward!" Her voice was sharp now, losing its mocking tone. Ryan finally looked at her directly. His voice was calm. "I said I was here to finish it, not play games." Then he moved. No one in the crowd saw how. One moment he was standing in front of her, and the next he was behind her. Not even a sound marked his step. It was like reality had bent for just a second. Vial spun with a snarl, blades ready, but he was gone again. Before she could adjust, something slammed into her back. A punch, just one punch. But the force of it sent her flying across the arena floor, armor sparking as she crashed against the stone wall. Gasps rang out from the audience. Silence fell like a curtain. In the stands, jaws dropped. Even the loudest Sithari fell quiet. Their undefeated champion, their war goddess, had been knocked down, not by power armor or plasma cannons, but by a single unarmed human who hadn't even broken a sweat. Ryan stood alone in the middle of the arena, his hands still in his pockets. His expression hadn't changed. Calm, tired, almost like he didn't want to be there. And that was when Viel, lying dazed in the dirt, realized something terrifying. He wasn't even trying. Dust settled across the stone floor as the crowd remained frozen in stunned silence. The alien warrior Viel, who had once silenced armies with a glance, now lay sprawled on her side, one hand clutching her ribs. Her breathing was sharp, broken. She couldn't understand how he had moved that fast or hit that hard. Her armor had been forged to withstand railgun blasts, and yet the human's fist had cracked it like cheap glass. Across the arena, Ryan stood still, his posture relaxed, his face unreadable. His eyes scanned the crowd, not with arrogance, but as if checking to see if this was really worth his time. The audience didn't cheer or jeer anymore. They watched in a kind of growing dread, unsure if they were witnessing a miracle, or the arrival of something far worse. The officiator, a four-armed Ujari priest, slowly raised a trembling hand to pause the match. But Viel growled, dragging herself upright. "Don't stop it," she hissed. Her voice, though raspy, carried pride and fear. She had never tasted fear before. Viel's pride refused to let her yield. Pain raced through her side, and she felt blood wet against her armor's inner lining. She summoned the second blade from her back with a flick, electricity crackling down its edge. She moved more cautiously now, circling Ryan instead of charging. Her eyes darted, looking for weakness. The man hadn't taken a single real stance, no weapon, no armor, no guard. He stood there like he had nothing to worry about. That was what made him terrifying. Every champion she'd faced before had shown effort. This one showed restraint. With a sharp breath, Viel lunged again, this time moving with the speed of lightning. She spun midair and feinted left, then twisted, right with her blade aimed straight at his chest. But her strike met only air. Ryan had ducked under her in one smooth motion, turned, and tapped the back of her knee with the edge of his palm. Her leg buckled instantly. Her body slammed against the ground again. Gasps echoed around the arena. Her second fall had been faster, harder, and again he hadn't followed up. No killing blow, just control. Vel coughed, tasting copper in her mouth. She rolled to her side and stared up at him. "What are you?" she whispered. Ryan looked at her, his tone as calm as before. "I'm just a guy who lost a friend to your war. You came to our system. You called it a cleansing, we called it murder." His voice stayed low, but it carried like thunder across the arena. "You wanted to break us. You thought we were weak. But you've only seen what we've shown you. You've never seen what happens when we stop holding back." A murmur rolled through the stands. On Zarkon Prime, the Sithari had always ruled by force. Their warriors had crushed dozens of smaller civilizations, burning planets and rewriting history in their image. They told stories of how humans begged for mercy when the Sithari fleets descended on Earth's colonies. But now, standing in front of them, was a human who showed no fear, no desperation, only quiet strength. The myth was breaking. Suddenly, above the arena, massive screens lit up with footage never meant to be seen by civilians. Human ships in orbit, fast, compact, bristling with weapons the Sithari didn't recognize. A lone camera captured a squad of Sithari soldiers falling back behind cover, then getting pinned by drones that moved like ghosts through rubble. A mech burst through smoke, painted black and marked with a symbol, an Earthborn Phoenix. It stomped forward and launched a plasma round that vaporized a Sithari tank in one shot. The crowd began murmuring louder now, confusion spreading. These weren't the images they had been shown in state broadcasts. This was not the weak, begging species they had mocked for years. This was war. Precise, silent, devastating. Vale watched the screens, her breathing shallow. "You brought this to us," she rasped. Ryan looked at her, but his face didn't soften. "No," he said. "You did that when you came to us. We only brought the end." And then, for the first time in her life, Viel, the undefeated, the blade of the Sithari, felt something deep in her chest twist with cold understanding. He had never come to win. He came to send a message. And she had been chosen as the warning. The silence in the arena deepened until it felt like the whole planet had stopped breathing. Above them, the screens kept playing footage, human warships sweeping through the void like wolves, drones outsmarting Sithari commanders, soldiers, in gray armor rescuing civilians the Sithari left behind. The images shattered everything the Sithari had believed about the humans. They were supposed to be a primitive species, desperate, scattered, broken after the cleansing fleets attacked their colonies. But these images told a different story. They showed strategy, precision, discipline, and something worse, something terrifying, restraint. It was clear now the humans had only fought back with a fraction of their power. Vael, still on one knee, in the arena dirt, finally realized why Ryan wasn't trying to kill her. He wasn't here to prove he could win. He was here to prove they could destroy everything but chose not to. It wasn't mercy. It was warning. Ryan turned from her, walking toward the far end of the arena. His steps were unhurried, like a man who had finished what he came for. Above, the footage paused and was replaced by a symbol, a white phoenix rising from fire, the emblem of Earth's new defense command. A voice followed, broadcast in a dozen languages across the stadium. It was calm, steady, and impossible to ignore. To the leaders of the Sithari Dominion, it said, "This message is your final offer. Return our people, stop your expansion, or we will stop it for you." The crowd gasped. Not even rebels had dared to speak to the Dominion like this. Vael's hands clenched the dirt. She was the symbol of Sithari strength, and now, in front of the galaxy, she had become the symbol of their weakness. From high in the arena, a section of the stands exploded. Fire and debris rained down as alarms blared. Ships screamed overhead. Sleek human dropships cutting through Zarkon Prime's airspace, dropping flares and drones as they descended in tight formations. Panic spread. The crowd screamed and scattered, while guards rushed to shield the high command watching from their private balconies. Ryan looked up, squinting at the flames above, then calmly tapped a device on his wrist. "Hold position," he said. Somewhere above, human pilots obeyed. They didn't open fire. They didn't attack the crowd. They only hovered, just enough to show they could have ended everything in seconds. It was control again. Unshaken, silent control. Vael forced herself up, rage and shame battling in her chest. "You could have killed me," she shouted. "Why didn't you?" Her voice cracked from pain and confusion. Ryan turned slowly. "Because that's not justice," he said. "That's revenge, and we're not here for revenge. We're here to remind you we're still standing." His eyes met hers. "And that we gave you every chance to stop." Above them, the screens flickered again. More footage now, of survivors. Sithari camps on human moons, filled with prisoners, children in cages. The footage zoomed in on burned villages and lifeless cities once home to Earth colonies. The crowd grew quiet once more, some gasping in shock, others staring in disbelief at the crimes their leaders had hidden. It wasn't just a duel anymore. It was truth. A second voice cut through the air, this time rougher, filled with emotion. It was a broadcast from Earth's prime commander, General Natalia Graves. Her face filled the screen. She had silver hair, a scar across her right eye, and a voice that could make steel bend. "We are not your prey," she said. "We are not your servants. You came to our skies with fire. You took our people. You thought we would break. But humanity does not break. We bend, we bleed, then we rise." Her voice dropped to a whisper, powerful even in quiet. "You have 1 day to respond." Vael stood silent in the dust, watching, her empire's pride collapse under its own lies. Around her, even the guards didn't move. Some dropped their weapons. Some just stared at the screens, eyes wide, lost. The Dominion's illusion had cracked, and the fear they had built there. Rulon was now turned against them. Ryan gave her one last look. "Tell them," he said. "Tell your rulers. The next time we come, we won't walk into your arena. We'll walk through your throne room." Then he turned and walked away, vanishing into the smoke and dust as the dropships rose back into the sky, leaving behind silence and a shaken empire that had finally seen what humanity truly was. Across the Sithari Dominion, news of what happened in the arena spread like wildfire. Every planet, every moon, every station, even the deepest military outposts, was forced to watch the same footage. Their strongest warrior defeated without the human even trying. Their proud war machine humiliated not with firepower, but with a quiet warning. The image of Ryan standing calmly in the dust, surrounded by fire and smoke, staring down the Empire without a weapon, became a symbol. It wasn't just about strength. It was about control, about a message so sharp it cut through every wall of arrogance the Dominion had built. On the core worlds, the leaders of the Sithari gathered in a massive black chamber carved into the heart of their capital. Dozens of tall, cold-faced officials stood in silence, watching the arena footage again and again, trying to make sense of what had happened. A general slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "He was alone! One human!" And he broke the symbol of our military might. But no one responded. No one dared to speak the truth, that the human hadn't even used a fraction of his strength, and still they couldn't stop him. Meanwhile, aboard the command ship Resolute Dawn, Ryan sat in a dim strategy room surrounded by commanders from Earth's united forces. Screens floated around him showing reports, transmission logs, and new data from behind enemy lines. One of the officers, a young woman with sharp eyes and a tight bun, leaned forward and said, "We shook them. They're scared. Some planets are even cutting ties with the Central Dominion fleet." Ryan nodded slowly but said nothing. Behind his calm expression, his thoughts were racing. He didn't want fear. He wanted clarity. He wanted them to see what humanity truly was, not a beast that lashes out, but a storm that waits and watches, then hits with purpose. Another officer asked if they should press the advantage, hit the outer colonies while the Dominion was still shocked. Ryan shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "We give them a choice, that was the point. If they want peace, they'll come to the table. If not..." He let the rest hang in the air. Everyone understood what would come next. Back on Zarkon, Prime Vale was taken into seclusion by her own people. Not as a prisoner, but as a problem. Her defeat had shattered the illusion of Sithari invincibility, and now the leaders didn't know what to do with her. Some wanted to erase the fight from all records. Others wanted to paint it as a fluke, a trick. But too many had seen the truth. Too many whispers were growing. Young warriors began to ask questions their elders couldn't answer. Why did she lose? Why did the human hold back? Why does the Dominion lie? On some fringe worlds, the unthinkable began to happen. Sithari soldiers refused orders to attack remaining human colonies. A few even defected, sending warnings across stars trying to reach Earth. Vale sat alone in a stone-walled chamber, her armor removed, her face bare, staring at the floor. She kept replaying the fight in her mind. Not just the hits, but the way Ryan had moved, the way he had looked at her. Like she was already defeated the moment she stepped into the ring. She hated him for that. And yet she also understood something deeper now. The humans had survived everything the Sithari threw at them. They were not the weaklings the Dominion had claimed. They were fire in the ashes. She clenched her jaw. They had warned her empire. But the Dominion was proud. Pride didn't yield easily. War was coming. Far above, in the cold emptiness of space, Earth's fleet began to move. Not with chaos, but with careful purpose. Stealth ships slipped behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence. Drones mapped out planetary defenses. Engineers adjusted new weapons born from old pain. Weapons built in silence while Earth mourned its dead. Across the galaxy, a quiet dread settled in the hearts of many. Not because humanity was invading yet, but because humanity was preparing. And when they prepared, they didn't just come to win. They came to end things. Ryan stood at the window of the command deck staring at the stars, knowing full well what was coming. He didn't want war. But he also knew something very old and very human. Sometimes to stop monsters, you had to become something worse than fear. ChatGPT said, "In the deep silence of space, the Dominion made its choice. And it was war." The message came without ceremony, without warning. It was broadcast across every human frequency, a simple declaration that Earth's demand was rejected, and that any further approach into Sithari territory would be considered an act of total war. No peace, no negotiations, just silence after the words, as if the Dominion believed their threat alone would scare the humans back. But they didn't understand Earth, not anymore. The moment the message ended, Earth's command fleet, stationed in the dark orbit of a dead star, came to life. Engines roared to full power, shields crackled. The formation of ships shifted into combat lines that had been practiced for years in hidden systems, waiting for this day. Ryan stood at the front of it all aboard the flagship Resolute Dawn, armor sealed tight, helmet at his side, eyes locked on the map hovering before him. It showed the path to the heart of the Sithari Dominion, planet by planet, base by base. He didn't speak. He just pointed to the first target. "We begin," was all he said. And the stars burned. The first battle came quickly, above a mining world called Krellin IV. The Dominion had stationed 3 destroyers there, expecting only a scouting force. What arrived instead was Earth's first flare fleet, ships with names like Vigilant Storm, Crimson Honor, and Ashes of Sol. The fight was brutal. Lasers lit up the void. Missiles screamed through silence. Earth's warships used tactics no one in the galaxy had seen before. Drone clouds that moved like swarms of hornets, guided by AI linked to the fleet's neural core. The Dominion ships fought back hard, but it became clear fast. They were outmatched. They moved with pride. Humans moved with purpose. The battle lasted 22 minutes. The Dominion fleet was gone. Krellin IV surrendered without a word. As Earth's forces pushed forward, system after system fell. But it wasn't just victory. It was revelation. On every captured world, humans found evidence of what the Dominion had done. Slave camps, broken cities, species used as tools or wiped out completely. The truth spread like wildfire, and not just to humans. Alien species that had once feared Earth began to speak out. Some sent supplies, others sent warriors. A few sent nothing but words. "We believe you now." The war changed shape. It wasn't just Earth against the Dominion anymore. It was Earth leading a rising storm. Ryan moved from battle to battle like a ghost in steel. He never shouted. He never celebrated. He just kept pushing forward, studying enemy patterns, finding holes, and striking. But he also protected. On a scorched moon where human prisoners were held, he personally led the rescue. When a Dominion cruiser threatened a civilian ship during retreat, he ordered 3 destroyers to shield it, even if it meant taking damage. His soldiers followed him not just because he won. They followed because he never forgot why they fought. On the other side of the galaxy, Vel watched the flames grow. Now free from her seclusion, though still under quiet suspicion, she found herself questioning everything. Her former commanders wanted her to speak out, to tell the people the humans were dangerous beasts, but she refused. She had seen Ryan's eyes. She had seen what mercy looked like when it came from someone who didn't need to give it. And deep inside, part of her wondered what would happen when that mercy ran out. She sat alone in a war chamber once carved from obsidian, listening to reports of falling colonies, of Dominion warlords turning against each other, of Earth pushing forward with steady, burning resolve. She whispered to herself, "He warned us." Back at the front, Earth reached a tipping point. The next target was not a minor colony. It was a core world, Tarsus V, home to weapons factories, elite training grounds, and the seat of one of the Dominion's major war councils. Ryan stood before his fleet and spoke plainly. "This is where they think we'll break," he said. "Where they think we'll pull back. Let's show them we don't stop until the fire is out." The signal was sent. The fleet moved again. This time, they weren't just fighting to win a war. They were fighting to tear down a throne of lies and build something new from its ashes. The skies above Tarsus V turned red as Earth's fleet emerged from warp space like a silent storm. The Dominion had prepared for this attack. thinking it would be Earth's desperate move. They gathered their strongest warships, elite squadrons, and hundreds of orbital cannons, confident they could crush the humans in one brutal stand. But as the first Earth ships appeared, dark, jagged silhouettes against the sun, something strange happened. The Dominion ships hesitated. Some crews faltered. Others backed away from their stations. The fear was already inside them, planted the day Ryan stood calm in the arena. Now, that fear bloomed. The battle began with no warning. Earth's forces didn't wait. Squadrons of human fighters darted between blasts, weaving patterns the Dominion's targeting systems couldn't track. Drones swarmed like living shadows, jamming signals, tearing through gun ports. The main human ships moved with cold discipline, striking with focused fury. They didn't shout. They didn't boast. They just dismantled the Dominion line one piece at a time. The defenders of Tarsus fought hard, but the truth was clear. They were not ready for this kind of war. Ryan led from the center aboard Resolute Dawn, moving through the chaos with steady precision. He watched the enemy's formation shift, saw the patterns in their movements, and gave quiet commands that broke them apart. A Dominion dreadnought locked onto his ship and fired a full barrage, but Ryan had already seen it coming. He shifted the fleet's formation mid-fight, drawing the dreadnought into a trap. A hidden human cruiser rose from a cratered moon behind the dreadnought and fired its rail cannons straight through the hull. The massive ship exploded in silence, a fireball swallowed by vacuum. Still, Ryan did not cheer. He moved to the next threat. He fought not for revenge, but to finish this, to protect what was left. On the surface of Tarsus V, Dominion leaders watched in panic from their hardened command towers. Their elite guards spoke in hushed voices, unsure if their shields would hold. One of the generals demanded reinforcements. Another whispered, "Where is Vile?" But she was already moving. Armed in black armor with no flag, no house symbol, she had made her choice. She walked through the burning corridors of a Dominion compound where civilians were being held as shields, cutting down her own side to free them. Her name echoed on both channels now, traitor to some, hero to others. She wasn't fighting for Earth. She was fighting because something inside her had changed. She had seen the truth, and she couldn't be blind to it anymore. As the orbital battle reached its peak, Ryan gave the final order. The core tower of Tarsus V, the Dominion's main command relay, had been located. It was shielded deep in the planet's surface, guarded by layers of automated turrets and elite troops. No orbital strike could reach it, so Ryan went himself. He and a squad of hand-picked soldiers dropped through the atmosphere in silent pods, breaking through enemy lines like thunder. They landed hard, fought harder. Ryan moved like a ghost in fire, his rifle never missing, his steps never stopping. The Dominion soldiers were well trained, but they fought with fear. Ryan and his team fought with purpose. In the final chamber of the relay tower, Ryan found the Dominion's Central Command AI. It had no face, only a voice that called him human anomaly, and warned of retaliation. He didn't speak back. He planted the override device built by Earth's best minds and activated it. Within moments, the system began to shut down, signal by signal. Across Tarsus, Dominion units fell into chaos as command lines went silent. Ships lost coordination. Ground troops were blinded. The war machine had been unplugged. As Ryan stepped out of the tower, smoke rising behind him, a message from Vielle came through. Her face appeared on his comm screen, blood on her armor, flame in her eyes. "It's done," she said. "They know who you are now. They know what you are." Ryan looked into the smoke-filled sky and answered with only 2 words. "So do they." The people of Tarsus, once loyal to the Dominion, stood from bunkers and hiding places, not with weapons but with wide eyes. For the first time, they saw the human not as a monster but as a storm that chose where to strike. And this time it had struck to break chains. The war was ending, but peace didn't come quietly. Across the stars, Dominion systems fell one by one, not because Earth demanded it, but because fear spread faster than orders. Entire fleets powered down rather than face another human assault. Outposts surrendered before even seeing a ship. They had all seen what happened on Tarsus V. They saw one man lead a force that tore through the heart of an empire and walked out without a scratch. The image of Ryan, calm, focused, unstoppable, had become legend overnight. It wasn't just that he won, it was how he did it. No shouting, no boasting, just action. That was what shook the Dominion to its core. But Ryan didn't care about legends. He sat alone in the debriefing room aboard the Resolute Dawn, watching the stars slide past through the view window. The mission was complete. The command relay was down. Tarsus was free. Yet something inside him still felt heavy. He didn't fight for medals or parades. He fought to end something. And even now, it wasn't over. News reached Earth days later. Cheers in the streets, celebrations in every city, fireworks lighting up the night skies. For the first time in generations, humans weren't running or hiding. They were standing tall. Still, Ryan didn't go home. Instead, he answered the silent call from Vielle. She had returned to her homeworld, not as a commander, but as someone lost between two worlds. Her people were broken, some angry, some relieved, all uncertain. When Ryan arrived, they watched him like a ghost. The same warrior who humiliated their best, who broke the unbreakable chain, now stood among them without a weapon, without a guard, just him. Vielle walked beside him wearing no armor, only a simple cloak. She introduced him not as an enemy, but as a reason. The crowd was silent at first, then someone asked the question that lingered in every heart. Why didn't he kill us all when he had the chance? Ryan didn't give a speech. He looked around at the children, the old ones, the soldiers with cracked helmets and tired eyes. Then he said, "Because that's not why we fight." The words were simple, but they cut deeper than any blade. The people began to listen, not just to him, but to what he represented. Not power, not fear, choice. That maybe strength didn't always mean domination. Maybe it could mean restraint. Still, not everyone welcomed it. Some Dominion commanders tried to restart their networks, rebuild control. One even launched a rogue fleet toward Earth, hoping to strike back. But they never made it. Ryan had left a message encoded into the broken relay system, a warning. If another fleet tried to attack, Earth would answer, not with ships, not with bombs, but with a man who wasn't even trying the first time. That message alone was enough. The fleet turned around halfway. Its crew mutinied. They refused to fight a war already lost in spirit. Back on the Dominion world, a small group of leaders gathered in the ancient council chamber. The great flags had been taken down. The gold, symbols removed. They sat in silence, not as rulers, but as people. Ryan stood before them, not asking for surrender, not demanding terms, but offering something else. A place to talk. A chance to rebuild, not as enemies, but as survivors. Some argued, others stayed quiet. Vielle stood beside Ryan, her voice steady as she said, "We cannot erase what we've done, but we can choose what we become next." The silence stretched long but slowly. One by one, heads nodded. Not all agreed, but enough did. A message was sent, across the galaxy, across shattered systems and broken colonies. Not a treaty, not a victory speech, just a signal. The war was over. Ryan left that world the next day, leaving no statue, no mark, only a change in direction. He returned to the Resolute Dawn, and as the ship slipped into deep space once more, he finally allowed himself a breath. Not of relief, but of hope. He had seen what fear could do. He had seen what war created. But now, just maybe, he had started something else, something better, not because he fought harder, but because he chose when to stop. The stars moved quietly now, like they finally had permission to rest. Ryan stood alone at the edge of the viewing deck, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the black canvas of space. Around him, the Resolute Dawn cruised through a calm sector, its hulls quiet for the first time in years. There were no alerts, no battle plans, no countdowns. Just silence. And for Ryan, it felt strange. For so long, Every breath had been taken in preparation for war. Every step measured against loss. Every decision followed by echoes of destruction. But now, there was something unfamiliar in the air. Peace. He didn't know what to do with it. Not yet. He heard soft footsteps behind him and turned to see Vielle approach, her expression thoughtful but less guarded than before. She walked without armor, without command, just herself. Her eyes met his and she offered a nod, one of respect, not formality. They stood together without speaking for a while, watching the slow drift of stars. Across the galaxy, things were beginning to change. The old Dominion flags no longer flew over the core systems. Colonies once ruled by fear now held their own boats. A fragile alliance was forming, not forced, not bought, but chosen. Humanity was no longer seen as a wild threat or a desperate survivor species. They were seen as something different, a warning, a hope, a reminder. The image of Ryan, calm in the face of enemy fire, unshaken by alien power, had spread beyond propaganda. It became a symbol. Some saw him as a monster, others called him a hero. But most saw him for what he truly was, a man who refused to lose his humanity in a war meant to destroy it. Vielle broke the silence first, asking what he would do now that it was over. Ryan didn't have a clear answer. He had no home waiting, no medals he cared about. But he wasn't empty. He had seen the beginning of something better, and that was enough. For now. Vielle nodded again, understanding without needing more words. She too was uncertain. Her world was rebuilding and she would help guide it, not as a leader of war but as someone who had learned from failure. Her people now looked to her not with fear, but with cautious trust. That trust had started with one man who didn't swing first, and somehow that changed everything. Later, Ryan received a transmission from Earth, a simple message from Command. "You're needed at home. We have plans for peace now. Come help us build it." The words felt heavier than any mission he'd received before. He hadn't thought much about home in a long time, but maybe it was time, not to rest, but to build, not with weapons, but with hands that knew how to fight and had chosen not to. The resolute dawn changed course, turning toward Earth for the first time in years. As the blue planet grew in the distance, Ryan watched with something close to wonder. Not because it was beautiful, though it was, but because it had endured. Everything the Dominion threw at humanity, everything they burned, crushed, and threatened, it didn't break them. It sharpened them, but not into something cruel, into something unshakable. When the ship entered orbit, cheers rang out across cities, spaceports, and colonies, not because of a returning warrior, but because peace had a face now. People who had once lived in fear now stood tall. Kids who had only seen war on screens now dreamed of stars without fire. Monuments were built, not of conquest, but of choice. Ryan's name was etched into stone not for how many enemies he'd defeated, but because he showed that even when he could destroy, he didn't. He walked through the streets of Earth like a ghost becoming human again. Families thanked him. Survivors saluted. Veterans nodded with quiet respect. He didn't stop for speeches. He didn't need to. The world didn't need a speech from him. They just needed to see that he was real. That someone could go through the worst the galaxy had to offer and still come back standing. At night, Ryan looked up at the stars again. They didn't look cold anymore. Somewhere out there, new alliances were forming, new leaders rising, old wounds healing. The galaxy wasn't fixed, it might never be. But it was different now, because one alien warrior had smirked at a human thinking he was weak, only to realize too late that he wasn't even trying. And when he finally did, he didn't just win the battle. He changed everything.